Hello again. Today we're going to take a look at uploading our images to social media, making them small enough to email, basically resizing our images. And what I'm going to do is first I will start in Lightroom and then I'll go into Photoshop and I'll just show you how I resize my images for certain platforms. Okay, so I have a few presets set up. So let's have a look at probably the most basic one, and that is uploading to social media. So as you can see here, we've got this image here, which is 6000 by 4000 pixels. So that's the full resolution image. What I want to do is downsize it and even put a little bit of a watermark on it. So the way I like to do it, we'll do it here first in Lightroom, and then I'll show you how I do it in Photoshop. So once we've selected our image, I'm just going to do it with this one image. What we do is we come up to File and Export, or you can go back to your library and export from there. So just make sure you've got your image selected. If you want to do multiple images, you can hold your Control key, select multiple images. But yeah, either through the library, you select the image, or directly from the Develop tab, if we just come up to File and Export, and you're going to see this screen. Now, I've got a few presets that I saved. So I'll show you how I save these presets. And then all we need to do, for example, with my Facebook one, I click on Facebook, it puts it into a Facebook folder. I'll just run through how I do it. So the first thing we want to do is choose a folder where we want to save it. So just on my desktop, I have a photos folder, and within my photos folder, I have a Facebook page. So everything I upload to Facebook, I select my Facebook folder, so then it's going to go into there. I don't put it in subfolders. That's pretty much what I do there. Now, file naming, I do rename and I come up with a custom name and I just call it Facebook. If we have more than one or two images, it will come up as Facebook 1, Facebook 2, Facebook 3, etc. Okay, so I rename my Facebook images just so they don't have the original file name on them. File settings. Now, this is the important one. What I do is I do it as a JPEG and I limit my file size to 500K. Okay, so that's going to be, look, it's still going to look fine. Have a look at the images that I put onto my Facebook. These are the settings that I use. Okay, so if they look fine to you, this is exactly how I do it on Facebook. I am dumbing down my images as much as I can. So if people do try to take the image and print it, it's not going to look great. The next one we skip down to is the image size. Now this is another important one. Image size, I have my long edge at 1500 pixels. Now that's still pretty generous. 1500 pixels is a decent size resolution. And importantly here is our pixels per inch. So just make sure you are on pixels per inch and your resolution is at 72. Now, output sharpening, I don't touch because I do my sharpening when I do my edit. Okay, with metadata, look, it includes all metadata. It's a good idea to leave everything on. Okay, it's a bit of a safety feature. So if you just leave all of that metadata on, I think by default these are ticked. So just untick them and that will leave all metadata in your image. Okay, then we come down to watermarking. Now I've got a couple of presets set up. I've got one not for media. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll show you how we do this. So if we just click on this little drop down box and come down to edit watermarks. Okay, so you'll see a screen very similar to this. And all we do is we just type in our watermark here. Okay, now to do the copyright, so on Windows, you hold the Alt key and type in 0169. So Alt 0169, and that gives you your copyright symbol. Now on Macs, it's a bit different. What you do is you press your Option and G on the keyboard. So Option and G will give you your copyright symbol. iPhones, Android, everything like that. Again, it's all different. So depending on which system, just do a Google search and you'll be able to find it easy enough. Okay, so I type in my copyright, type in my name, and then we have all these options up here. If you want to include a custom watermark, you can actually create a custom watermark and choose that to go on. Text options, you can choose all sorts of things from here. Okay, so this is where all your options are. Type your name in down here. Most importantly, you can choose where you want it. So down here, you'll see the little, I'll change this opacity up to 100% so we can see it. So I really just use my watermark effects. We can have our opacity as high as we want. You can choose where your logo is going to go. So I generally put mine in the bottom right hand corner. You can change the size of it, make it as big or as small just by this slider. Okay, so I tend to make it fairly small. And what I do is I do turn my opacity down. So it's not too obvious that it's in the image, but it's there. Okay, so I tend to turn it down to around about 2 or 3. So I know it's there. And, you know, if people do use your image and upload it, you'll know it's there, and then it's easy to point out. Where if you have it up high, people can just, these days it's very easy to remove things. With all the AI tools that we have, anybody can remove that easily. So I find just by hiding it, if we have it sort of so it's just visible, people might not see it and then try not to remove it. Okay, so that's the way I do it. Look, it's all personal preference. I know some people do like to include their watermark and a logo. Personally, I don't like it to interrupt the image too much. Okay, if I'm sharing an image, I want people to look at the image, not notice a watermark. Okay, and then we come down to save, and we can call it whatever we want. So I'll just call this one test as an example. Hit create. Okay, and then when we come down to our watermarking options, we're going to have all of our watermarks in here. Okay, so I have one that's visible, I have one that's light, I have one that basically says not for media use, and then I have the test one. So when we export our image, it will appear with whichever watermark we've selected. Again, at any stage, slow down the video and just have a look at where I've got everything set. And then what we can do is we can add this preset. So then you don't have to go and redo this every time you want to upload a new image or resize an image. So if we just hit add, we can call it whatever we want. And again, I'll call this one test and then hit create. And there it is there. Now we have our test. But as you can see, as I go through all of these, they change where I'm saving my files. So the Facebook one, for example, I know it's going into that Facebook folder. And if I hit that test one, it's going to be exactly the same because I've essentially copied the Facebook one. And then you just hit export. And now if I go to my Facebook folder, there it is there. Okay, so there it is there. So it's still, resolution is fine. The image looks fine. It's dumbed down, it's small. And if we have a look down here, you can just see the watermarks. Now, just on a side note, with Instagram, for example, let me go back to here quickly, because with Instagram, sizing is different. Okay, Instagram have a very weird sizing where their short edge is 1080 pixels with the long edge at 1350 pixels. So what that means, images that are in landscape mode are fine. Okay, so landscape style images are fine. If we were to do one that was in portrait style, it's going to crop your image in Instagram. And this is a bit of an issue with Instagram. The way it's sized, it doesn't suit these images. So for example, if I was to enter a custom and we did an aspect ratio of, so their long edge is 1350 and their short edge is 1080. Okay, so that's how Instagram will crop your portrait style images. So if you're doing it in Lightroom and you want to upload it to Instagram, just be wary that when you need to resize or crop your image before you export it. Okay, I still export it at the same settings. I still use my long edge as 1500. Instagram will dumb it down, and so will Facebook. All these programs, they dumb down your images even more once you upload them. But I find the Instagram images, I use that same Facebook setting, but then I will crop my image because I know that that's what they're going to do. Okay, so you can do it in Instagram, but it just makes it easier if you can resize it first. So yeah, Instagram short edge is 1080, long edge is 1350. Now onto the Photoshop version. So with Photoshop, to put a watermark on our image, we need to do it before we export it. Okay, there's no real options or easy way of putting a watermark on. So I suggest all you do is grab the type tool Okay, and then just type in. So similar to what we did with Lightroom, if you want the copyright logo, hold your Alt key on Windows, hold your Alt key 0169, and on Mac, it's hold your Option key and G on the keyboard. iPhone, Android, do a Google search, you'll be able to find out how to do it. But the main ones, yeah, on Windows, hold your Alt key, type in 0169, and on a Mac, press the Option and G on your keyboard. That will type in your copyright logo, and then you can actually, for this one, let's do the not for media use. Okay, so that's the easiest way to do it in Photoshop, just with a type tool, or you can bring in your own. If you've got your own logo, you can bring it in, add it onto the image. From there, we can drop our opacity if we want to. If it's a not for media use, I usually do make it fairly large. If it's your own logo, personal preference. Like I said, I like to have it fairly faint just so it doesn't interrupt the image too much. Makes it harder for people to realize it's there and remove it. Once we've done that, we just go to Layer, Flatten Image. So that's put our watermark on there. So Type Tool, easy way to do the watermark. Now to export it for social media, what we do is we come up to File, Export, Export As. Now there is an export for web. I don't like that one. It doesn't give me enough options. So Export As, okay, you should see this box appear. Now the format, we do want JPEG. JPEG's the most common way of doing it. It's not the best, but for social media, look, it's not all about quality with social media. JPEG works fine. Our width, we want to change that to 1500 pixels. And then if we press tab, it's just going to resize the image for us. I do like to use my metadata. I like to have that information on there. And another good one to have is the embed color profile. So for example, this image I worked on in an Adobe RGB color space. So by using our embed color profile, it's just going to save all of our colors and everything when we convert it to sRGB. So that's a good one to tick just to keep everything nice and uniform. And as you can see here, here's our output settings. So 1500 by 1000, and it's around about that 500 KB, which is where I want it. Now the next image will be a bit larger, so we'll get to that soon. And then just hit export, and I'm going to put it into that same folder. And this one I'm going to call Facebook Photoshop. And then what we'll do is we'll have a look at the difference between them all. Save. Okay, now that's saved as our JPEG ready to upload. So I can close that now. When it comes to Instagram with portrait style images, as I mentioned in the Lightroom, their dimensions are just a bit strange. Okay, so what I like to do is 1080 by 1350 in my crop tool. So I put in those dimensions in my crop tool, and then we can choose to crop wherever we want to. Okay, now you can do it in Instagram before you upload, but I just find it's easier just to get it prepared before I upload to Instagram. Press the tick button, and now it's cropped where I want it. And again, if we just want to put in our type tool, okay, and we can change that to wherever we want. Okay, so just again with our move tool, we can move this to wherever we want. Control or Command and T, we can transform it, and we can make it as big or as small as we want. Okay, if it's a not for media use, I do tend to make it a little bit bigger. Whether it stops them or not, it's a different thing. But yeah, look, if you upload something to Facebook, Instagram, any social media, they can use it. Okay, that's the way social media works. They can use an image without even asking you. The not for media use might deter them a little bit, but at the end of the day, social media is exactly that. If you upload something, it's there for the social people to use. And then again, you can use your opacity to have it as bright or as dark as you want. Okay, and then layer, flatten image. Once we've done our watermark, file, export, export as. Okay, again, JPEG. Now this time, if I change my width, I'm going to change it to 1350 because that's what Instagram like. But we can see now it's quite a large file, and that's simply because it's a dark image. Dark images tend to take up more data. So what I can do now, I don't want it to be that large. Okay, I do want to dumb it down a bit. It'll make it easier. The smaller the file, the easier it is to send it. It will send quicker. And then what I'm going to do is change my quality. So if I change my quality, say down to 80%, now it's down around about that 600K, which that's fine. Okay, include my copyright info, use my embedded profile. Okay, you might find that you might need to dumb this down to 60% to get the file small enough to where you want it. But as long as it's around about that 500K thereabouts, that's roughly where I go. Export, and we'll call this one Insta. Save. So now I've exported those photos and saved them so they're ready for the social media platforms. Okay, and if I go into my Facebook folder, I can see that they're all there. There's my original one through Lightroom, there's the Photoshop version, and there's the Insta version. So if I click on this, you'll see that the dimensions, they're not full screen. Okay, so if people do try to pinch your images and print them out, they're going to be a fairly low resolution. They're not going to look great printed, but they're going to look fine on social media. Okay, so you'll see there is a bit of a difference between Facebook and Lightroom in the export settings. I do prefer the way Lightroom handles the export. And the Instagram one, well, Instagram's Instagram. There's not much you can do about it. That's their dimensions. If you upload a larger image, they will just dumb it down anyway. Okay, so it doesn't matter how high a quality you upload to Instagram, they will resize your image anyway. Facebook, Instagram, resize them first, get your files nice and small. And I find this is a good compromise between the best quality and having the images not too large that people will borrow them to print for themselves. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hopefully you did like it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe. Lots more simple and effective ways of doing things coming up. Okay, hopefully some more live streams soon. So until the next video, thank you, and I will see you soon.